Julian triumphantly announced at the family gala that he had become the wealthiest man. The next second, a top-tier actress and a cold-blooded female CEO burst through the doors simultaneously, slamming bankruptcy liquidation papers into his face. Mr. Carter has bought all your debt. Right now, even your underwear doesn't belong to you. Get out. Welcome. The exciting story is about to begin. If you enjoy it, please subscribe to the channel. With a dull thud, a worn-out cardboard box slammed directly onto the smooth asphalt road outside the Beverly Hills mansion. My few cheap hoodies and several college textbooks scattered across the ground, looking every bit as pathetic and disheveled as my life was at that moment. Take your trash and get lost. Carter. Julian Thorne, my disgusting stepbrother, leaned against the black Porsche 911 that originally belonged to me, a mocking sneer playing on his lips. From this day forward, you aren't even qualified to step near the gates of the Vance family. I clenched my fists, my nails digging so deep they nearly pierced my skin. Julian, that was the trust fund my grandfather left for me. $50 million. You forged the signatures and bribed the lawyers. I glared at his hypocritical face, the rage in my chest threatening to burn me to ashes. 3 months ago, my beloved mother passed away in bitterness on her sickbed. My high and mighty CEO father, Richard Vance, didn't even stay for the entire funeral before he couldn't wait to bring his former secretary, Evelyn, and this illegitimate son, Julian, who is barely 2 weeks older than me, into our home. What's even more ridiculous is that Richard actually allowed this mother and son to bribe the family trust's executive lawyer. Using a forged will, they transferred the entire $50 million inheritance, left to me by my grandfather and mother, and meant for me alone, into Julian's name. Oh, don't whine like a pathetic stray dog. Carter. Evelyn stepped out from behind the ornate wrought iron gates, her stilettos clicking on the pavement. She was wearing my mother's favorite Chanel suit and the diamond necklace that had once belonged to her. She let out a hypocritical sigh, though her eyes gleamed with malicious triumph. Your father is doing this for your own good. A useless waste like you with no business sense would only squander $50 million. Julian is different. He's heading to Wharton next month. In his hands, that money will actually reach its full potential. Where's my father? Tell him to come out and face me. I roared toward the house. Richard is in the middle of an important international video conference. He has no time for a loser who's been kicked to the curb. Evelyn snorted coldly and waved a hand at the nearby security guards. Get him out of here. Don't let him smudge our driveway. 2 burly security guards immediately stepped forward, shoving me out the gate like I was some vagrant. Julian flashed me his middle finger, and with the piercing roar of an engine, he sped off in his Porsche. The heavy, carved iron gates slowly closed before me, letting out a dull metallic thud. I slumped onto the ground under the blinding Los Angeles sun, staring at my books scattered across the pavement. Despair washed over me like the freezing waters of the Pacific. In this capital-driven America, without money, I didn't even have the standing to hire a third-rate lawyer to take them to court. $50 million. That was $50 million. It was the culmination of my grandfather's life's work, and now it had become the capital for that wretched woman and her son to flaunt. Ding! Just as I was clutching my hair, teetering on the brink of a total breakdown, an incredibly crisp, emotionless synthesized mechanical voice suddenly echoed deep within my mind. Host detected in a desperate situation. Emotional fluctuations have reached the threshold. Goddess investor system has been successfully bound. I snapped my head up and looked around. The street was deserted, with only the tall palm trees by the roadside swaying in the wind. Who's speaking? I gasped in a low voice. The voice in my head ignored my panic and continued its announcement. This system is designed to help the host become a financial emperor dominating the global capital markets. The rules are simple. As long as the host approaches or comes into contact with individuals whose comprehensive rating reaches the level of an exquisite goddess, high-profit investment intelligence will be activated. The higher the goddess's rating and favorability, the more terrifying the return on investment provided by the system. I froze. A system? A trope so cliché that even a Rotten Tomatoes certified Hollywood sci-fi flop wouldn't dare use it lightly had actually landed on me. Carter Vance? Starter pack has been issued. Host, please locate your first goddess target as soon as possible to activate initial investment intelligence. The mechanical voice gradually faded, leaving behind a translucent light blue interface on my retina that only I could see. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Whether this was a hallucination or the truth, it was my only chance to turn the tables. I had to get back the money that belonged to me. I would make Julian, Evelyn, and that cold-blooded Richard crawl on their knees and pay a bitter price for their greed. I quickly gathered my meager belongings from the ground, slung my backpack over my shoulder, and began walking aimlessly along the tree-lined boulevards of Beverly Hills. Where exactly was I supposed to find a so-called top-tier goddess? Just then, a silver-white Aston Martin sports car, accompanied by the low, elegant hum of its engine, pulled up slowly in front of a high-end independent cafe not far ahead. The doors swung upward, and a pair of long, slender legs and limited-edition stilettos stepped out first. Following them was a graceful figure that could only be described as perfect. It was Serena Sterling, the heiress of the Sterling family, the recognized ice queen of the University of Southern California, and the most brilliant diamond in Los Angeles's elite social circles. She possessed a waterfall of blonde hair and features so exquisite they looked like the most perfect sculpture from Michelangelo's chisel. Her icy blue eyes held a coldness that warned others not to approach. As if all the common mortals in this world were unworthy of even a second glance. Even though we were at the same university, we lived in two completely different worlds. She frequented top-tier luxury private yacht parties, while I was nothing more than a son marginalized by his father, and now, a bankrupt, drifting pauper. But I couldn't afford to care about that right now. Just as Serena turned toward the cafe entrance, less than 10 meters away from me, ding! That wonderful mechanical voice rang out frantically in my mind once again. Alert! Top-tier 99-point goddess target detected. Serena Sterling, entering effective range. Initial system rewards activated, generating the first high-return investment intelligence for the host. My heart began to race, and the blood boiled in my veins. On the blue light screen of my retina, rows of golden data flashed wildly, finally settling on the ticker symbol of an obscure pharmaceutical stock. I stared intently at that string of data, a frantic sneer gradually curling at the corners of my mouth. Julian, did you think you won just by kicking me out of the house? My game of revenge has only just begun. Intelligence generation complete. Target stock. Atlas Medical ticker, ATLM. Action recommendation. Full position buy-in on call options. Projected return, 3000%. Effective countdown, 48 hours. 3000%? I stared at the golden light flickering across my retina, my breathing suddenly growing heavy. This meant that if I could just scrape together $10,000 to invest, I would have a full $300,000 in my hands in just 2 days. However, the total amount of cash I could scrounge up right now was a pathetic $73.50. That wasn't even enough to buy 2 cups of those damn organic Kopi Luwak coffees in this high-end independent cafe. I had to get my hands on some seed capital, and I had to do it fast. I gritted my teeth and locked my gaze on Serena, who was sitting by the cafe's floor-to-ceiling window, elegantly flipping through an original French magazine. Although it sounded like an utterly insane and dangerous idea, I had no other choice. I took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy walnut door of the cafe. The crisp chime of the doorbell failed to catch Serena's attention. She remained immersed in her own world, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows onto her golden hair, making her look like a snow goddess who had accidentally wandered into the mortal realm. I walked to the seat opposite her, pulled out the chair without ceremony, and plopped down. Serena finally looked up from her magazine. A flicker of surprise flashed in those ice blue eyes, only to be swiftly replaced by unabashed disgust and indifference. "I'm sorry, this seat is taken, and I don't believe I know you." Her voice was like an icy spring in winter, clear, but bone-chillingly cold. "Carter Vance. We were in the same macroeconomics elective at USC for a semester, though you probably never noticed me." I tried to keep my voice steady and confident, even though my palms were slick with sweat. "I know I seem like a lunatic right now, Miss Sterling, but what I'm about to say is worth at least $1 million. I'd like 5 minutes of your time." Serena frowned slightly, her eyes sweeping over my faded hoodie. A mocking curve touched the corner of her mouth. "Vance? Richard Vance's son? I've heard of you. But what I heard was that you were just disowned by your father for a gambling addiction, and that you made off with your younger brother's trust fund." I froze, a surge of indescribable fury erupting in my chest. Julian and Evelyn, those vipers. Not only had they stolen my money, but they had the audacity to strike first, spreading such vile rumors throughout Los Angeles high society. "That's a load of bullshit," I hissed, sounding like an enraged lion. "They forged documents to steal the $50 million my grandfather left me. My entire net worth right now is exactly $73. What does this have to do with me?" Serena seemed completely uninterested in my melodramatic family drama. She closed her magazine, picked up her limited edition Hermes bag, and prepared to stand up. "I have no interest in listening to the complaints of a fallen young master. If you want to beg for food, go to the street corner outside." "Wait!" I stood up abruptly, slamming my hand down on the table in front of her. "I don't want your charity. I want to make a deal with you." Serena stopped her movements and looked at me coldly. "I know the Sterling family recently had a multi-million-dollar investment blocked in the biotech sector. The laboratory you've set your sights on has stalled, with no progress on core technological breakthroughs." I stared intently into her eyes and dropped a bombshell. This was a piece of personal intelligence regarding Serena that the system had just provided as a bonus. Serena's pupils contracted sharply. This matter was an absolute secret within the Sterling family, unknown even to many core executives. How did this destitute loser find out? "What are you trying to say?" For the first time, a ripple of emotion flickered in her voice. "Give me $100,000. Within 48 hours, I'll pay you back $300,000. Plus, I'll give you a piece of top-secret insider information for free that can bring the Sterling family's investment back from the dead," I said with absolute conviction. 100,000? What makes you think I would hand over $100,000 to a gambler who was just kicked out of his house? Serena looked at me as if I were a madman. Based on nothing but these baseless, arrogant claims of yours? On what grounds? On the grounds that if you walk out that door right now, the Sterling family's initial investments in the biotech sector will go completely down the drain. I met her gaze without flinching. To you, $100,000 is just the price of 2 handbags. But to me, this is a life-or-death gamble for a comeback. Do you dare to bet? Serena fell silent. She stared intently into my eyes, as if trying to find a hint of guilt, or a lie within them. But I didn't back down. My eyes held only the madness of someone burning their bridges and absolute confidence, because behind me stood that god-tier system. After a full half-minute, Serena sat back down in her chair. She pulled a checkbook from her bag, took out a Mont-Blanc fountain pen, swiftly wrote down a string of numbers, then tore it off and pushed it toward me. Here is your $100,000. Serena's voice remained icy, but it carried an unquestionable sense of pressure. Carter Vance, you had better pray you aren't playing me. If I don't see $300,000 and that insider information in 48 hours, I guarantee the Sterling family's legal team will ensure you spend the rest of your life in the sewers of Los Angeles. Ding! Detected that the host has successfully established an initial interest-based bond with the top-tier goddess. Serena! Favorability unlocked. 5%. Reward. Obtained hacker-level hidden permissions for financial accounts. Listening to the wonderful notification sound in my mind, I took the thin check, and the corners of my mouth finally curled up uncontrollably. See you in 48 hours, Miss Sterling. After leaving the cafe, I immediately found an internet cafe and used the money from that check to open a secret offshore trading account. Under the hacker-level hidden permissions granted by the system, my transaction records will not be traceable by any institution. Without a moment's hesitation, I poured the entire $100,000 into short-term call options for Atlas Pharma. With the high leverage inherent in options, my position was instantly maxed out to the extreme. Just 2 hours after I hit the enter key to confirm the trade, a piece of news that shocked all of Wall Street exploded across the internet. The FDA has taken the unprecedented step of granting early approval for Atlas Pharma's breakthrough cancer drug. The medication has achieved a revolutionary milestone in clinical trials. Atlas Pharma's stock price, which had been trading sideways at the bottom like a pool of stagnant water, instantly ignited like a heavy rocket and shot straight into the stratosphere. 30%, 80%, 200%. My eyes were glued to the red K line on the computer screen, which was climbing vertically at a 90-degree angle, and my heart contracted violently as the numbers ticked up frantically. When the closing bell rang for the U.S. stock market, the measly $100,000 in my account had transformed into a figure that made my breath hitch. $3.15 million, and it had been less than 10 hours. I leaned back in the worn-out gaming chair of the internet cafe, staring at the numbers on the screen, and let out a low, manic laugh. Julian, are you ready to face my wrath? As I walked out of the internet cafe, the air in Los Angeles felt suddenly sweet and fresh. I tossed aside the bag of yellowed old clothes and headed to the most exclusive bespoke tailor on Rodeo Drive, dropping $20,000 in cash for a high-end, ready-to-wear suit. In the mirror, the young man's messy hair had been meticulously styled into a mature, sharp slick back. The charcoal gray custom suit perfectly accentuated my tall, upright frame. If yesterday I was a pathetic wretch dragged out of a gutter, today I already bore the faint silhouette of a Wall Street elite. I transferred $300,000 from my account to Serena, accompanied by a brief text message. The money has been returned. Tomorrow night at 7, Four Seasons Hotel Beverly Hills. The answer to the Sterling family's dilemma will be revealed. After sending the message, I accessed the hidden account once more. Guided by the system's precise intelligence, I used the remaining $85 million to purchase batches of virtual currency options on the verge of volatility and several short positions on heavily undervalued tech stocks. The system acted like a sophisticated future-predicting machine. As long as I was surrounded by a high-level goddess magnetic field, those financial curves that were once as mysterious as riddles transformed into the clearest withdrawal slips in my eyes. The following evening, I rented an incredibly flashy Rolls-Royce Cullinan and arrived right on time at the $10 million rave hosted by Julian. The location was my former home in Beverly Hills. At this moment, the mansion's garden was brightly lit, with heavy metal music blasting loud enough to practically shatter the leaves on the trees. Countless Los Angeles trust fund kids, minor influencers, and models were partying wildly. Julian, dressed in a flamboyant shiny suit, stood by the pool with his arms around several scantily clad young models, loudly proclaiming his $50 million startup plan. Everyone, this $50 million is just the beginning, Julian shouted, raising a champagne glass with an air of smug satisfaction. I've already reached agreements with several venture capital firms. I'm going to turn this money into $500 million. The future of the Vance family is in the hands of Julian Thorne. Julian, you're amazing. This is the true heir to the Vance family. Far superior to that gambling-addicted Carter. A chorus of sycophantic cheers erupted from the surroundings. I let out a cold sneer, pushed open the car door, and walked into the garden with steady strides. As I passed the audio console, the music was abruptly cut off by the professional technician I had brought along. The entire venue fell silent instantly, and every gaze shifted toward this uninvited guest. When Julian saw me, he froze for a moment before bursting into a fit of manic laughter, as if he had just seen the most hilarious joke. Yo, look who's back! Julian pushed aside the model surrounding him and stumbled toward me, still clutching a half-empty bottle of expensive champagne. Carter, my dear brother, haven't you died in some homeless camp yet? What's this? Putting on a knockoff designer suit and renting a luxury car just to come back and witness the moment I reached the top? That bitch Evelyn also descended from the second-floor balcony. She looked at me with disdain, her voice icy. Carter, this is illegal trespassing on private property. If you don't get out right now, I'll have the police arrest you immediately. This time, your father isn't here to protect you. Ignoring her threat, I pulled a thick stack of documents from the inner pocket of my suit and hurled them directly at Julian's smug face. Papers were scattered all over the floor. What is this? Your suicide note? Julian asked with a grim expression, casually picking one up to take a look. With just one glance, his face instantly turned from flushed red to deathly pale, and then to a sickly shade of green. This is impossible. Where did you get these? Julian's voice began to tremble. Those were all the original drafts of the signatures he forged in my grandfather's name, along with the transfer records between him and that executing attorney. Of course, these were all absolute original copies that the system helped me deep mine from the dark web. Julian, illegally seizing a massive inheritance is a felony in California. I stepped forward and whispered in his ear, my voice just loud enough for the people around us to hear clearly. Did you think you could just walk away with that $50 million? I have already officially filed a lawsuit in the Los Angeles Superior Court, and... I paused deliberately, flashing a cruel smile. That $50 million you were just bragging about, you lost more than half of it in yesterday's Atlas Pharma short-selling debacle. Didn't you? Don't forget, in your pursuit of high returns, you leveraged the trust fund with loan sharks. And now, that debt is about to come due. Julian's body swayed violently, in a desperate attempt to prove himself to his father. He had indeed been possessed by greed yesterday and followed the crowd to short Atlas Pharma. As a result, he was completely wiped out by the news of the anti-cancer drug's approval. How do you know? Julian's cold sweat poured down like a waterfall. Carter, stop spreading your lies. Evelyn rushed forward, trying to tear at my suit. Julian has the best investment team. There's no way he's losing money. You're just jealous. This is slander. Whether it's slander or not, just check your text messages and you'll know, I said calmly. The moment I finished speaking, Julian's phone began ringing frantically with notification alerts. With trembling hands, he tapped them open to find countless payment ultimatums from trust banks and the shady financial institutions he had become entangled with. His account has been frozen, and the massive sum of money he embezzled, instead of generating profit, has now become a gaping black hole of debt. The sycophantic trust fund kids who once surrounded him changed their expressions in an instant, each one beginning to quietly back away as if he were the plague. No, this isn't real. Dad, save me! Julian screamed like a madman. Richard can't save you. I looked at him coldly, because he's currently busy dealing with an internal financial audit of the Vance Group. He'll soon discover that your lovely mother, Evelyn, has siphoned a full $10 million from the company accounts behind his back over the years. Evelyn's face instantly turned as pale as paper. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed directly onto the meticulously manicured lawn. Ding! Detected that the host has successfully struck back at enemies Julian and Evelyn. Host's personal charm value has increased. System upgrading. Current target goddess favorability feedback. Serena Sterling has arrived at the hotel. Favorability increased to 15%. Without sparing another glance at the pathetic mother and son, I turned around and walked toward the Cullinan. The first stage of revenge is complete. But this is merely the interest. What I want is the total collapse of the Vance family. And the establishment of a capital empire belonging to me, Carter Vance, to the Four Seasons. I met Serena in the presidential suite on the top floor of the Four Seasons Hotel. She remained the image of an ice goddess, clad in a well-tailored silver silk gown that traced her elegant curves. Yet, as she saw me walk in, a rare flash of extremely complex emotion flickered within those cold eyes. 300,000. Not a penny less. I've received it. She sat on the sofa, gesturing toward the glass of champagne she had poured on the table. You won the first round, Carter Vance. I didn't touch the drink. Instead, I pulled out the chair opposite her and sat down, cutting straight to the chase. The key to the Sterling family's blocked biotech investment lies in a fatal error within the gene recombination sequence data known as Project X. The chief scientist in charge of the project was bought off by your competitor, the Blackstone Consortium, long ago. He deliberately provided a set of false data containing a logical trap. Serena's pupils dilated sharply. Her fingers tightened around the champagne glass until they turned white, and her breathing grew rapid. How can you prove that? Her voice remained cold, but I could sense the tremor within it. I pulled a slim, few-page miniature file from my briefcase and slid it across the table toward her. This is a transcript of the secret meeting between that scientist and the Blackstone Consortium executives, along with the records of a $2 million wire transfer to his offshore account. More importantly, I tapped the final page of the document, which was covered in complex formulas. This is the actual key data derivation model for Project X. Take this to your lab, and by tomorrow morning at the latest, your technical barriers will be completely dismantled. Serena snatched the documents and flipped through them page by page. Having received a top-tier elite education, she could naturally tell at a glance whether these materials were genuine. When she reached the model formulas on the final page, she snapped her head up, a look of genuine shock finally breaking across her otherwise flawless face. Who exactly are you? Why do you have these things? Someone who was once stepped on, and now wants to take everything back. I leaned back, crossing my hands over my knees. Miss Sterling, I haven't just saved you tens of millions in losses. I've also handed the Sterling family an exclusive patent that will be worth hundreds of millions in the future. In return, I need you to do something for me. Ding! Detected that top-tier goddess Serena Sterling's favorability has surpassed 20%. Unlocking advanced investment skill. Business Empire Eagle Eye. The host can now intuitively see the core loopholes and fatal weaknesses within target enterprises. What is it? Serena took a deep breath, regaining her usual composure. I want to use the Sterling family's platform to host a closed-door investment roadshow this weekend. I stared intently at her. I don't need your money. I only need your name and the venue. I want to invite all the top investment firms in Los Angeles. Serena frowned. What are you planning to do with your current capital? You don't even have enough to play in this circle. That's my business. You just need to nod. Serena fell silent for a moment. She looked at me, a trace of something indecipherable flickering in her eyes. Fine, I agree. The Sterling Manor Ballroom is yours to use this Saturday at 8 p.m. But let me be clear. If you mess this up, the Sterling family won't just refuse to cover for you. We will personally crush you. Deal. I smiled slightly, standing up to take my leave. Just as I was about to reach the door, Serena suddenly called out to me. Carter. I stopped in my tracks and looked back at her. You've changed. Her eyes flickered away, but her tone was no longer as cold as before. I've never seen a man like you. I didn't answer. I simply pushed the door open and walked out of the room. 2 days later, Friday night, Julian, that fool, has finally run out of options. The news that he embezzled trust funds and blew up his account with high-leverage stock trading can no longer be kept under wraps. Those loan sharks don't care if he's Richard Vance's son. They only care about the money. To make matters worse, the Vance family businesses are facing a severe liquidity crisis following the scandal of Evelyn's clandestine fund transfers. Richard Vance, my once insufferable father, is finally getting a taste of what it means to be at his wits' end. He's been forced to swallow his pride and go around begging for favors, even selling off several of the family's luxury mansions just to barely cover a portion of the deficit and keep Julian from going straight to prison. But I know those two won't just sit back and wait for death. Richard is a cunning old fox. By leveraging connections built over decades, he managed to claw his way into a $200 million bridge loan from a few old-school Wall Street investors. They plan to use this money to make a desperate gamble by acquiring an AR tech company called Future Vision. Richard boasted that as long as the acquisition was successful, Vance Group could take flight again on the wings of the tech boom, potentially even doubling its market value. Unfortunately, what they didn't know was that Future Vision was the grave I had meticulously prepared for them. Under the system's business blueprint Eagle Eye skill, I had long since seen through Future Vision's hand. This company's so-called revolutionary AR core patent actually contained an unfixable optical latency bug. Once the product entered the mass production stage, this bug would trigger widespread vertigo issues, leading to a total product recall. Richard thought he had picked up a massive bargain, unaware that he was clutching a time bomb set to explode at any moment. Saturday evening, Sterling Manor. The banquet hall was filled with the glitterati. Nearly every prominent investment mogul in Los Angeles had turned out as a courtesy to the Sterling family. Dressed in my bespoke suit, I wove through the crowd with a champagne flute in hand. Just then, the doors were flung open, and Richard Vance strode in aggressively, accompanied by Julian. When Richard saw me standing on the main podium, his expression instantly darkened to the extreme. Carter, you absolute bastard! Richard strode to the front of the stage, pointing a finger at my nose and cursing loudly. Not only did you leave the family in a total mess and frame your brother, but now you have the audacity to use the Sterling family name to swindle people here. Who do you think you are? Julian hid behind him, glaring at me venomously. Everyone, don't listen to him. He's just a gambler who ran off with the family's money. He squandered that $50 million long ago. The eyes of the entire room instantly focused on me. The investment moguls whispered among themselves, clearly more interested in this drama of a father-son fallout but also harboring serious doubts about my identity. I didn't get angry. Instead, I let out an exceptionally brilliant smile. Mr. Richard, your words are truly touching. I picked up the microphone, my voice carrying clearly throughout the banquet hall. Since you mentioned that 50 million, let's see who exactly is lying. I pressed the remote in my hand, and a Swiss bank statement with the highest level of confidentiality immediately appeared on the large screen behind me. The original sum of just over $2 million had, under the system's extreme micromanagement and high-leverage operations over the past few days, snowballed into a breathtaking figure, $130 million. I looked at Richard's increasingly vacant expression and said, emphasizing every word, that is the liquid capital I have at my disposal right now. I would like to ask President Richard, can your Vance Group still produce more than 10 million in cash from its accounts? A deathly silence filled the room, followed by a sudden burst of incredulous whispers. $130 million. To these tycoons, who were well versed in capital operations, the figure itself might not have been an astronomical sum. However, the crux of the matter was that less than a week ago, I was merely a playboy rumored to have been bankrupted by gambling and kicked out of my home. This magic-like rate of asset expansion was completely beyond their comprehension. Richard's face was a sight to behold, shifting from red to white, then turning a ghastly shade of ashen gray. The so-called paternal authority he took such pride in was crushed to dust in the face of these cold, hard figures. This is impossible. You must have forged the account credentials, Julian shrieked, sounding like a cat that had its tail stepped on. I shot him a cold glance. The dynamic anti-counterfeiting watermark of a Swiss bank. Is there anyone among the heavyweights seated here who wouldn't recognize it? Julian, do you think everyone is as stupid as you? Capable only of forging signatures to steal someone else's inheritance? Richard took a deep breath, forcing down the shock and fury raging within him. He was a veteran of the business world, after all, and he knew that lashing out now would only make him look more pathetic. Fine. Very well, Carter. It seems I underestimated you, Richard said through gritted teeth. So what if you got lucky and made a bit of money? Do you really think that small change is enough to go up against the Vance Group? Let me tell you, we just secured a $200 million investment, and we're about to finalize the acquisition of Future Vision. Once we have a firm foothold in the AR sector, the pittance you have won't even be enough to get our attention. Oh, is that so? I let out a mocking laugh. Then you better hold on tight to that cash cow. I ignored Richard and his son, turning instead to face the room full of investors. Everyone, I didn't invite you here tonight to show off my personal bank account. I switched the slide, and a company logo appeared on the screen, Sequoia Tree Capital. I have just completed a full acquisition of this second-tier Wall Street hedge fund and officially renamed it Vance's Eagle. My gaze swept across the room like a torch. And my first fund project will focus specifically on short-selling tech companies with potentially fatal flaws. I deliberately emphasized the words potentially fatal flaws. The investors in the audience were all shrewd operators, and they immediately caught the scent of blood. Some began to whisper among themselves, while others even pulled out their phones to start verifying the information I had provided. Serena stood at the very edge of the crowd, holding a goblet, a strange light flickering in those ice-blue eyes of hers. Ding! Detected that the target goddess Serena Sterling's favorability has increased to 25%. Host's aura has been enhanced. After the roadshow ended, Richard and Julian left dejectedly. They were likely in a hurry to head back and push forward the acquisition of Future Vision, hoping to use concrete results to slap me in the face. Once the crowd had dispersed, Serena walked up to me. You really acquired a hedge fund outright? She looked at me with a hint of disbelief. Of course. The funds were settled just an hour ago. I gave a slight smile. Thank you for the venue tonight, Miss Sterling. Consider this a small return gift from me. What exactly are you trying to do? Serena frowned. Are you trying to short Future Vision? As far as I know, that company's technology is highly rated in the industry. Richard might be tight on cash right now, but those $200 million are the real deal. A high rating doesn't mean there are no fatal flaws. I leaned in closer to her and whispered, just wait for the show. Serena, it's going to be quite the fireworks display. Over the next few days, I began aggressively accumulating borrowed shares of Future Vision. This was an extremely dangerous short-selling tactic. If the stock price rose, I would be facing a bottomless pit of losses. But I wasn't panicked at all, because the countdown provided by the system had less than 72 hours remaining. On the very afternoon that Richard grandly announced the Vance Group had officially completed the acquisition of Future Vision for $200 million, sending the company's stock price soaring by 15% against the market trend, I boarded a flight to New York. The battlefield in Los Angeles had already been set. Next, I needed a massive pool of capital sufficient to pry at the very foundations of the Vance Group, as well as an ally capable of commanding the winds and clouds on Wall Street. After settling into the Waldorf Astoria in Manhattan, I immediately opened the system. Scan the current area for top-tier goddess targets. Ding! Scan complete. Target locked. Olivia Hayes, the youngest hedge fund queen on Wall Street, founder and CEO of Hayes Capital. Overall score, 98. Attributes. Extremely cold-blooded. Data fanatic. She's the one. Olivia Hayes? The woman known on Wall Street as the Black Widow. She values nothing but data and profit, remaining utterly ruthless. Yet, at the same time, she controls over $5 billion in deployable capital. If Serena was a lofty snow lotus atop an iceberg, then Olivia was a bone-scraping steel blade dipped in poison. Early the next morning, I didn't bother trying to make an appointment at her company. With such conventional methods, I wouldn't even get past her secretary. Instead, I went straight to the Vault, an elite private health club near Wall Street. According to the system's intelligence, Olivia arrives here punctually at 7 every morning for high-intensity Muay Thai training. I changed into athletic gear and stepped into the training area. Bang! 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 The dull thuds of impact echoed through the empty gym. On the ring, a woman with an incredibly sultry figure, clad in a black sports vest, was frantically pummeling a sandbag. Every punch she threw was packed with explosive power, and sweat slid down the defined lines of her abs. I walked over and casually tossed her a towel. Olivia stopped her movements and glared at me with an extremely dangerous look in her eyes, like a leopardess whose meal had been interrupted. Get lost. She spat out the 2 words coldly, making no move to take the towel. Miss Olivia Hayes, your hooks have plenty of power, but your defense is full of holes. Just like that. Apocalypse Tech. Stock you've been heavily longing lately. It looks like it's on a promising rally, but in reality, its core architecture has been completely compromised by a group of Russian hackers. By tomorrow's opening bell at the latest, they will dump the stolen trade secrets, and the stock price will plummet 40% in an instant. I stood by the edge of the ring, my tone as flat as if I were discussing the weather. Olivia's gaze instantly became as sharp as a blade as she stared me down. Who are you? Carter Vance. I offered a faint smile. The man who can help you turn tomorrow's disaster into $100 million profit. Olivia narrowed her deep brown eyes, scanning me from head to toe like a high-resolution sensor. Vance? Richard's useless old son? She ripped off her boxing gloves and tossed them aside, her voice dripping with disdain. I heard you were an idiot who couldn't even hold on to a few tens of millions in inheritance. What now? Decided to switch careers and become a prophet? Rumors are always deceptive, Miss Hayes. Just like the Apocalypse Tech you invested in, it looks glamorous on the surface, but it's already rotten to the core. I didn't get angry. Instead, I braced myself against the railing and flipped over, jumping onto the ring. You have a high win rate on Wall Street and are known as the Black Widow, but your most fatal weakness is that you rely too heavily on that so-called perfect data model of yours. You've overlooked the fact that human nature is the greatest variable in this market. I looked her straight in the eyes, closing in step by step until there was only a fist's width of distance between us. I could clearly smell the scent of sweat mixed with a certain cold perfume lingering on her. If a single word of what I just said is false, you can have security throw me out right now, I said, lowering my voice with a hint of provocation. But if I'm right, you provide me with $300 million in leverage. Do you dare to bet? Olivia did not back down. She met my gaze, a cruel sneer curling at the corners of her mouth. Fine. If Apocalypse Tech hasn't plummeted by tomorrow's closing, I will personally break both your legs and stuff you into a cement barrel in the Hudson River. It's a deal. Ding! Detected initial contact established with target goddess Olivia Hayes. Current favorability. 5%. Reward. Unlocked hidden trading channel for Apocalypse Tech. Short options. For the next 24 hours. I barely closed my eyes. From my suite at the Waldorf Astoria, I utilized the hidden channels provided by the system to convert all of my capital into put options for Apocalypse Tech. This was the biggest gamble I had ever taken. If I lost, I would be left with nothing, but I knew that the system had never been wrong. The next morning, 9:30 a.m. New York time, the U.S. stock market opened. At first, Apocalypse Tech continued its usual trend, maintaining a slight upward momentum. Olivia's assistant even called, her voice laced with mockery, asking if I was ready to pick out which cement barrel I preferred. I simply replied, let the bullets fly for a while. 10:15. A massive leak of top-secret files, totaling over a dozen gigabytes, suddenly erupted on the dark web. It contained the core source code in the next 3 years of business secrets for Apocalypse Technology. The publishers claimed they had gained full control of the company's servers and threatened to release these secrets to all competitors for free if a massive Bitcoin ransom was not paid. As soon as the news broke, all of Wall Street instantly went into an uproar. Tanchi Technology's stock price was like a plane that had lost its lift, plummeting straight into the abyss. 10%, 25%, 40%, due to the excessive decline. The circuit breaker mechanism was triggered, and the stock was forced into a trading halt. By this time, the massive short positions Olivia had opened at the start of the session following my advice had already earned her a profit of over $120 million in just 1 hour. 12 o'clock. The door to my suite was flung open. Olivia strode in, her signature red-bottomed heels clicking against the floor. Her face, usually as cold as frost, now bore an unmistakable look of feverish intensity and scrutiny. She walked straight up to me and slammed a signed document onto the table. A $300 million high-leverage credit line. The funds have already hit your designated offshore account. She stared at me intently. Carter Vance, how on earth did you pull this off? Even my intelligence network didn't catch a whisper of this. I picked up my coffee cup and took a slow, quiet sip. Because I can see things you can't. I set down my glass and looked at her. Now, I have $300 million worth of ammunition. Miss Hayes, are you interested in joining me to hunt down a fat sheep? Who's the target? Future Vision. And the Vance group behind it. Olivia froze for a moment, then suddenly burst into a fit of incredulous laughter. You're going to short your own father's company? And they just completed the acquisition of Future Vision for $200 million. The market is currently flooded with positive news. She looked at me as if she were looking at a madman. Do you have any idea that if you fail, this $300 million debt will leave you rotting in prison until your bones turn black? I know. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the bustling streets of Manhattan. That's why I need a bombshell that can truly detonate the market. What kind of bombshell? System prompt. Strong host intent detected. Initiating scan for the third goddess. Ding! Target locked. Scarlett Brooks. Hollywood A-list actress. With over 200 million fans worldwide. Comprehensive score. 99. I looked at the data flashing across my retina. A trace of a manic smile curling at the corners of my mouth. Miss Hayes, please book me a flight to Los Angeles tonight, I said, turning toward Olivia. I'm going to see a woman who can make Future Vision products lose face in front of the entire world. Olivia narrowed her eyes, seemingly reevaluating just how dangerous I was. Carter, you're a complete lunatic. But I like lunatics, they bring in the highest returns. Ding! Olivia Hayes. Favorability has increased to 20%. Unlocked. Global Public Opinion Manipulation Authority Basic. That same evening, I returned to Los Angeles. System intelligence indicated that Scarlett Brooks was at her private villa in Malibu, preparing for a secret audition. She was the global spokesperson for Future Vision's first AR glasses, personally hired by Richard at a massive expense. I must stop her before she officially signs the endorsement contract and wears those glasses at the press conference. No, I won't just stop her. I will turn her into my most lethal weapon for destroying the Vance group. The night wind carried the salty tang of the sea, avoiding the paparazzi on the perimeter. I exploited a security loophole provided by the system and slipped silently into the luxury villa worth tens of millions. Passing through the pitch-black corridor, I saw a faint light emanating from the screening room at the far end. I pushed the door open gently. In front of a massive screen, a woman of breathtaking beauty reclined languidly on a sofa. Script in hand, her signature red hair glowed vibrantly under the dim lighting. Who's there? Scarlett whipped her head around, eyeing me with sharp suspicion. Someone here to save your career, Miss Brooks. I stepped out from the shadows and tossed a pair of unreleased Future Vision AR glasses onto the coffee table in front of her. Scarlett didn't scream. Instead, her sultry green eyes fixed me with a cold stare. As a woman who had clawed her way to the top of Hollywood's Vanity Fair, she was far more composed than the average person. How did you get in here? Where is my security team? She reached into the crevice of the sofa, searching for the call button. Don't bother, Miss Brooks. Your security system has a low-level vulnerability that's gone unpatched for 2 years. I took the liberty of blocking it for you. I walked over to the sofa and pointed at the AR glasses. Did Vance Group offer you a staggering $20 million to debut those at tomorrow's global launch, complete with a mixed reality motion capture performance? Scarlett's hand froze. This was an absolute trade secret. Even her agent only knew half the details. Who are you? Did Richard send you to test me? My name is Carter Vance. I watched the flicker of surprise in her eyes and continued. Don't be nervous. Right now, I'm the person Richard wants to kill the most. I'm here to stop you from destroying your own acting career. I picked up the glasses and handed them to her. Put them on. Experience this so-called era-defining technology for yourself. Scarlett hesitated for a moment, but her intense curiosity drove her to take the glasses. System. Activate the Future Vision Fatal Bug Trigger Program. I commanded silently. Less than 10 seconds after Scarlett put on the glasses and activated the holographic projection, she suddenly let out a cry of alarm, ripped the glasses off, and began to gag, her face turning deathly pale. What? What is going on? She gasped, clutching her chest. The image suddenly started tearing and lagging severely. It felt like my brain was being struck by a sledgehammer. The intense vertigo almost made me collapse. This is the core technology they spent $200 million to acquire, I said, coldly revealing the truth. The optical latency in these glasses stems from an unfixable hardware defect. It might not be noticeable in a static state, but once you engage in the high-intensity motion capture required for your performance tomorrow, it will 100% trigger severe physiological discomfort, and could even lead to brief optic nerve spasms. Imagine this, tomorrow, in front of tens of millions of fans on a global live stream. You're halfway through your performance when you suddenly collapse on stage and start vomiting uncontrollably. Who will the Vance group blame? They'll say it was because you were drinking the night before. Or that your physical condition wasn't up to par. Your perfect image will crumble in an instant. Scarlett clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She was no fool and immediately understood the stakes involved. They want to use me as a guinea pig. And they've even prepared to make me the scapegoat. Scarlett said through gritted teeth. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm going to destroy the Vance group. I looked at her. Miss Brooks, tomorrow's press conference will proceed as scheduled. I want you to expose the truth about these broken glasses in front of the entire world. In return, I pulled a document from my pocket. This is a letter of intent for the sole female lead and top director Christopher's next sci-fi blockbuster. As long as you do as I say, this role is yours. It's worth far more than that $20 million endorsement deal. This was also intelligence the system helped me intercept by utilizing Olivia's hidden resources. Scarlett looked at the letter of intent, her breathing becoming rapid. That was the career-defining project she had been dreaming of. You're crazy, Carter. She looked up, a wild light flashing in her eyes. But I love this script. Ding! Scarlett Brooks. Favorability has increased to 20%. Unlocked. Global live stream top-tier trending privilege. The next day, at the Los Angeles Convention Center, the global launch event for Vance Group's Future Vision AR glasses. On stage, Richard was enthusiastically outlining a blueprint for the future of technology. Julian sat in the front row, looking smugly at the amazed expressions of the surrounding media. Now, please join me in welcoming global superstar, Miss Scarlett Brooks, to bring us a cross-generational AR experience, Richard announced loudly. Amidst dazzling lights and deafening applause, Scarlett made her entrance wearing a stunning bodysuit. She took the AR glasses handed to her by Richard, but she did not put them on as they had practiced during the rehearsal. Instead, in front of tens of millions of viewers watching the global live stream, she slammed those expensive glasses onto the ground with all her might. With a loud bang, parts scattered everywhere. The entire venue fell into a dead silence. This isn't some era-defining technology at all. This is a defective product that causes severe vertigo and can even damage the optic nerve. Scarlett picked up the microphone, her voice ringing out across the hall, crisp and filled with fury. Vance Group knew full well that the hardware had fatal flaws. Yet they still tried to make me wear it for strenuous exercise, using my health to pay for their lies. I refused to endorse this garbage. A single stone had stirred up 1,000 waves. Richard's smile instantly froze on his face. He tried to grab the microphone in a panic, but was firmly held back by Scarlett's bodyguards. Julian, even more terrified, collapsed onto the floor. At the same time, sitting in the VIP section below the stage, I pressed the send button on my phone. Utilizing the channels provided by Olivia, the system instantly sent dozens of technical inspection reports regarding the core defects of Future Vision to major mainstream tech media outlets worldwide. Under the system's global trending top privilege, this scandal dominated every online headline within 5 minutes. Vance Group suspected of tech fraud, $200 million acquisition revealed as massive scam. Meanwhile, on Wall Street, Olivia was managing my $300 million leveraged short position, like a pack of bloodthirsty sharks, frantically tearing into Vance Group's stock price. As the opening bell rang, Vance Group's stock plummeted like a kite with a broken string. 30%, 50%, 70%. The business empire Richard had painstakingly built saw billions of dollars in market value evaporate in less than 2 hours, leaving it on the brink of bankruptcy and liquidation. No, this can't be real. Richard stared at the shocking red lines of the plummeting stocks on his phone. His vision went dark, and he collapsed directly onto the stage of the press conference. Julian rushed off the stage like a madman, pointing at me and screaming, "It's you, Carter! You did this! You demon!" I stood up, straightened the hem of my suit jacket, and looked down at him from a position of power. "I told you, Julian. Whatever belongs to me, I will take back with interest. And now, you aren't even fit to polish my shoes." The press conference descended into absolute chaos. Like sharks scenting blood, the reporters frantically clicked their shutters, broadcasting the miserable sight of Richard being carried into an ambulance, and Julian slumped on the floor to the entire world. Ignoring the clamor behind me, I quietly left the convention center through the private exit. Outside, a black Maybach was already waiting. The window rolled down, revealing Olivia's exquisite and cold profile. In a rare move, she had opened a bottle of priceless Romani Conti in the car. I got into the car and took the crystal wine glass she handed me. In 4 hours, Vance Group's stock price dropped locked in at 78%, triggering the final circuit breaker of the day. It was directly delisted by NASDAQ and entered liquidation proceedings. Olivia looked at the data on her tablet, her eyes flashing with an awe that bordered on fanaticism. "Carter, the short positions and options we placed at the peak, bolstered by leverage, have all been closed. What's the profit?" I swirled the red wine in my glass, my tone calm. "After deducting all transaction fees, interest, and my commission." Olivia took a deep breath, appearing shaken by the figure despite her reputation as the cold-blooded queen of Wall Street. It's exactly $2 billion. Carter, you are now a billionaire several times over. If those old fossils on Wall Street knew that an outcast who was kicked out of his home earned this much in a single week, they'd probably jump off the Empire State Building en masse. This is just the beginning. Olivia. I drained the red wine in my glass in one gulp. It's time for me to wrap things up. 2 days later. Los Angeles. Beverly Hills. The same sunlight. The same tree-lined boulevard. And the same heavy, ornate iron gates. Only this time, the person being swept out the door was someone else. I leaned against a brand new Bugatti supercar, watching this immensely satisfying drama unfold before my eyes. Vance Group had gone bankrupt, and all assets under Richard's name were frozen and liquidated by the bank. To fill that massive dead hole, this Beverly Hills mansion was forced into a foreclosure auction, and I, through the Vance Eagle Fund, purchased it in full at a rock-bottom price. Now, I am the master of this place. You can't do this. This is my home. I still have a closet full of Hermes bags in there. Evelyn shrieked like a madwoman as 2 marshals forcibly dragged her out the front gate. She was wearing nothing but a cheap nightgown, her hair a disheveled mess, stripped entirely of the haughty, high society persona she once maintained. Julian followed behind her, carrying a tattered woven bag containing the few pieces of clothing they had left. His eyes were bloodshot, and he had grown so gaunt he was barely recognizable, looking as if he had lost his very soul. The Los Angeles District Attorney's Office had officially issued a warrant for his arrest on felony charges of forging a will and embezzling trust funds. He didn't even have the money to go on the run. With a loud thud, the marshal mercilessly tossed their woven bag onto the asphalt. A few pieces of clothing scattered across the ground. The scene was an exact mirror of the moment I was kicked out just 1 week ago. I slowly stepped forward and stopped in front of the mother and son. Julian looked up and saw me, his entire body trembling violently. He tried to lunge forward, but was immediately pinned to the ground by a nearby bailiff. Carter, you devil! You ruined us! You ruined the Vance family! Julian roared hysterically. No, it was your greed that ruined the Vance family, I said, looking down at him from above. Get lost with your trash. Julian. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, Richard has been diagnosed with a severe stroke at the hospital. He'll likely spend the rest of his life drooling in a wheelchair. You'd better pray the prison food suits your palate. Evelyn suddenly collapsed to her knees before me, clutching my legs tightly as she sobbed uncontrollably. Carter, I was wrong. Please, for the sake of Richard being your father, you're so wealthy now. Help us. If you just step forward and drop the charges, Julian won't have to go to prison. I'm begging you. I pulled my leg away in disgust, looking down coldly at this woman who was hypocritical to the core. A week ago, when you snatched the $50 million my mother left me, did you ever once consider that I was Richard's son? My voice was as cold as ice. Evelyn, I will pay for the best medical care for Richard so that he can live a long life in conscious agony, watching with his own eyes as I grind you both into hell step by step. As for you two, the gutter is where you belong. I waved my hand, and 2 burly private bodyguards immediately stepped forward, dragging the mother and son away from the driveway like dead dogs. The heavy, carved iron gates slowly closed behind me, letting out a dull metallic thud. This time, I was standing on the inside. Ding! In my mind, that long-absent synthesized mechanical voice suddenly erupted with the magnificent sound effects of electronic fireworks. Congratulations to the host. The main revenge quest, the liquidation of the Vance family, has been perfectly accomplished. Host detected to have completed a stunning reversal. The system is initiating a comprehensive upgrade to version 2.0. System upgrade complete. The Goddess Investor System has officially evolved into the Global Capital Overlord System, currently bound top-tier goddesses. Serena, favorability 30%. Olivia, favorability 25%. Scarlet, favorability 25%. The goddess favorability aura has formed a resonance. Host has acquired the passive skill Absolute Capital Pressure. In any business negotiation, the host will naturally hold a psychological advantage, instilling fear in opponents. Main quest updated. The pond of Los Angeles can no longer contain a dragon like you. The Blackstone Consortium, a top-tier Wall Street conglomerate, has set its sights on your Vance Eagle Fund. Host, please proceed to New York to confront the world's elite capital and establish a true financial empire. I stood on the vast lawn of the mansion, listening to the system prompts in my mind, a trace of an arrogant smile curling at the corners of my mouth. Blackstone Consortium? Is that the behemoth that previously tried to bribe the Sterling family scientists and steal the gene recombination technology? I've heard they control over $2 trillion in hidden assets globally, a true financial leviathan. Carter. The sound of high heels clicking against the marble echoed from behind. I turned around to see 3 women, Serena, Olivia, and Scarlet, walking out from the mansion's grand hall. The Ice Queen Campus Belle, the cold-blooded hedge fund queen, and the top-tier Hollywood superstar. 3 women who represented the pinnacle of their respective fields. Each possessing a breathtaking beauty rated above 95, were now rarely seen together in the same frame. Your victory banquet is ready, Mr. Vance. Serena held 2 glasses of champagne and handed one to me, a trace of inexplicable tenderness flickering in her ice-blue eyes. I've reviewed the Blackstone Group's recent financial reports. They have an extremely secretive long position on energy leverage in Europe. If you want to make a move, this is the perfect entry point. Olivia adjusted her gold-rimmed glasses, a bloodthirsty smile playing at the corners of her mouth. And as it happens, I'm heading to London next week for a private yacht party hosted by the ultra-wealthy. The head of Blackstone Group's European division will be there. Want me to fish for some intel for you, boss? Scarlett winked flirtatiously, her eyes brimming with charm as she looked at me. I took the champagne, looking at these 3 stunning women whose fates were now intertwined with mine because of the system, and felt a surge of boundless ambition rising in my chest. 50 million? 4 billion? No. What I want is the wealth of the entire world. I want every capital titan to tremble at the feet of me. Carter Vance. Cheers, ladies. I raised my glass, facing east, toward Wall Street, New York. The hunt has only just begun. The end. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thank you.